Hi guys, it's Mock here, and if you're having trouble understanding this here, the weapon set skill point system in Path of Exile 2, that basically allows you to change weapons, and when you change weapons, you can have different skills on your passive tree. So for example, if I go into my inventory here, you can see that I'm using a hammer and a shield. That's my weapon set number 1, indicated by this number 1 here on top of my weapon. So this is weapon set number 1, hammer and shield. And I have weapon set number 2, where I use 2 hammers. And you're gonna see here, when I change from weapon set number 1 into weapon set number 2, my skills here are gonna change. So I'm gonna press X on my keyboard to go into weapon set number 2, and notice here the skills are going to change. So I'm gonna press X, bam, it changed. Now I have those points here, those points here, here, you know, many different places of my skill tree changed because I'm using a different set of weapons. Now, if I go back, if I change back into weapon set number 1, you're gonna see again that the tree is gonna change. So I have different skills, different passives according to the weapon set I'm using. So again, I'm gonna press X, notice the tree, it changed. So if you don't know how to do this and how to set this up, that's what I'm going to teach you in this video. So first of all, in order for you to understand how to set this up, I'm going to talk to Doriani here, and I'm going to refund some of my points. I'm going to refund this here, and now you can see now that I have 4 skill points. You can see here and also here that I have 4 skill points to spend. If I just go here and allocate those points, so if I click here, 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 let's say I'm gonna use those nodes, notice the yellowish line connecting each of those nodes here. If it's a yellow line, it means that those points here, the same way like those points here, those here, if it's a yellow line, it means that those points are going to be used for both my weapon sets. So if I click apply here, and I go into my inventory, I'm going to change from weapon set number 1 into weapon set number 2, and you're gonna notice that nothing is gonna change here because remember, the yellow line means the points are going to be used for both of my weapon sets. So I'm gonna press X here, I changed weapons, nothing happened here because yellow line means those points are being used for both my weapon sets. By the way, this is also very important because remember, this system is very convoluted, and there's one thing that makes it even more convoluted, which is, notice how if I'm here and I change weapons pressing X on the keyboard, I can change weapons, like I can just keep pressing X and changing my weapons. If I go into my inventory, same thing. I press X, I change weapons, no problem, okay? Now, if I go into the passive skill tree here, and then I go into my inventory, I can change weapons just once. I press X, I change weapon set. If I try to go back, if I try to change it again, it won't work. I press X, nothing happens. And this probably is a bug because what should have happened is I just press X, I change weapons. See, I'm changing weapons. Going to inventory, press X again, I can change like freely, can just change weapons. As soon as I go into the passive skill tree, I can do it once, I can change once, and then I try to change it again, nothing happened. And this, as I told you guys, this is a very convoluted system. This bug makes it even more convoluted. So keep this in mind if you're trying to change weapons and nothing is happening on the passive skill tree. You have to close it, open again, and then you can change it. Okay, this is a bug. It's the system is complicated, and on top of it we have this bug to make it even more complicated. Okay, but going back to what I was explaining, if you allocate the points like as normally and you have the yellow line, those points are going to be used for both weapon sets. Now the question is, how do we make it so when I change weapon sets, the points here, the passive points, they also change according to the weapon set I'm using. In order to do it, I'm gonna talk to Doriani again. I'm gonna refund these 4 points here. And now I want you to pay attention, because this can be a little complicated, but actually it's not that complicated, but you gotta pay attention because it took me some time to figure it out. What I wanna do here is, I'm gonna go back into weapon set number 1. For weapon set number 1, this is my AoE map clearing weapon set. For this weapon set here, I wanna use those points here, okay? So those 3 points here are going to be used when I'm using weapon set number 1. When I'm using weapon set number 2, I want to use those points here. So how do I set this up? Basically, what I have to do, as you can see, I unspec those points. So I have 4 points to spend, 4 points to spend here. What I'm going to do is, first of all, this point here, this first point, is going to be used by both weapon sets, okay? Regardless if I'm using these 3 here or these 3 here, the first one, you can see it's going to be used by both. It has to be used by both. So this one, I'm just going to allocate normally. I'm going to click here. You see the yellow line? So this point is going to be used regardless if I'm using weapon set number 1 or weapon set number 2. So I'm going to allocate this, okay? So far, so good. Now, for weapon set number 1, now comes the important part. I'm going to close my inventory here. I want those 3 points here to be used only for weapon set number 1. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go here. You see, weapon set number 1. I'm going to click here. No, actually, you got to click this arrow here. You click the arrow, and it's going to say allocate points for weapon set 1. Now, everything that I allocate now is going to be used only when I'm using weapon set number 1. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to click here. See? And you're going to see that the line is red now. It's not yellow. Yellow line means it's used by both weapon sets. Red line means, actually not only red, like even like the node itself turns red. If it's red, it's going to be used only by weapon set number 1. And I'm going to allocate this, okay? Now, when I do this, you're going to notice here, weapon set number 1, 0. This 0 here indicates that I don't have any points left for weapon set number 1. But I still have 3 points left for weapon set number 2. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click weapon set number 2, okay? And I have 3 points to spend on weapon set number 2. And what I'm going to do is, since those are the points I want to use for weapon set number 2, I'm going to click here, 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 and you see the green line. The green line means that those points are going to be used only when I'm using weapon set number 2. Then I can apply, and you see here, it's set up in a way that this first point here is being used by both weapon sets. Those 3 here with the red line are going to be used by weapon set number 1, and those 3 here with the green line are going to be used with my weapon set number 2. So let's try it out. I'm going to change my weapon set from weapon set number 1 into weapon set number 2, and you're going to see that the points are going to change from red, because now we are using weapon set number 1, so we are using the red points. As soon as I change into weapon set number 2, I'm going to start using the green points. So I'm going to press X, and as you can see, now I'm using the green points, and I'm not using the red points because I'm using weapon set number 2. Now, there's a couple things that can be a little bit tricky when setting this system. The first thing is the bug where you cannot freely change weapons when you have the passive skill tree open. So you can change one time, but you cannot change more than, so I have to press Ask, go back into the passive skill tree, and then change. This can make things even more complicated. And another thing is, you have to realize, especially when setting like forks like this, that some points are going to be used for both weapon sets, and some points are going to be used just for one weapon set. So let me show you. If I go to Doriani one more time and spend even more money, if I want to set this up, because when I was trying to do this for the first time, I was going like this. Okay, weapon set number 1. So you got to click here. click the arrow here. Okay, allocating points for weapon set number 1. And I would go like this. I want this, I want this, I want this. And then I will go weapon set number 2. I want this, and it doesn't work, see? Well, why it doesn't work? Because some point, like this point, I cannot allocate this for weapon set number 1, and then click here and allocate the same point for weapon set number 2. Why? Because this point here, it's going to be used by both weapon sets. So it's like it's almost like you have 3 different kinds of points. So I'm gonna unspec this. If you don't click any arrows here, you are allocating points for both weapon sets, which is indicated by the yellow line. So this point here, if I'm setting up this fork, this point here has to be used by both weapon sets. So I don't click anything, I just allocate the point. Yellow line, okay, yellow node. Now, these here, just weapon set 1. So I click weapon set 1, and I put the points here. Then I click weapon set 2, and I click the points here, and then I apply. And this can be a little bit complicated, a little bit convoluted, especially because if it goes wrong, you have to spend money to unspec the points, and if you don't have a lot of money, you have to grind more money. So yeah, it's a little bit tricky. And on top of that, as previously mentioned, you have the bug. So try to go slow when you do that. And the way it was clear to me when I understood that you have basically 3 different kinds of points. The like regular general points, yellow, and the red points, weapon set number 1, and the green points, weapon set number 2, and then it works. Change weapons here. Okay, it changes the points that I'm using. If I press X again, it's bugged. I have to press S, go back again, and now it's working. Now there's one more thing that's worth mentioning, which is if I go into my skills here, and I have a rolling slam here just for demonstration purposes. If you go into any of your skills and you press the arrow here, you're gonna open this information screen here, and here at the bottom, you have used with weapon set, and you have weapon set number 1 and weapon set number 2. If you click both weapon sets, it means that this skill here, rolling slam, is going to be, the skill is going to be used regardless of weapon set. If you're using weapon set number 1, it's going to use weapon set number 1. If you're using weapon set number 2, it's going to use weapon set number 2. So let's show you how this works. I have here weapon set number 2, and I'm going to press rolling slam. So weapon set number 2, both hammers. See, if I press the skill, the character is going to use both hammers. So I press the skill, you see, it's using both hammers. So if I change now, if I swap into weapon set number 1, hammer and shield, and I press the skill, it's going to use just hammer and shield. So I press, see, using hammer and shield. This is useful when you just want to use the skill. You don't want to automatically swap weapons depending on the skill. Now, what I can do is I can go here, rolling slam, and I can say, let's say I want to use rolling slam only using 2 hammers. In 2 hammers is weapon set number 2 in this case. So what I do is I deselect, unclick number 1, and I click number 2, meaning don't use this skill with weapon set number 1, use it only with weapon set number 2. If I do that, what's going to happen is, if I'm using weapon set number 2 and I click rolling slam, it's going to actually just use the skill. But if I'm using weapon set number 1 and I click the skill, the character actually is going to first swap into weapon set number 2, which takes like half a second, even probably less, and then use the skill. So let's demonstrate this. First, again, I want to use the skill only with weapon set number 2. That's why I unclicked 1 and clicked only 2. So if I'm using weapon set number 2, I press rolling slam, it's going to use the skill using weapon set number 2. Now, if I'm using weapon set number 1 and I press the skill, it's going to first swap into weapon set number 2, which takes, as I told you guys, like maybe less than half a second, and then use the skill. So I'm going to press now, it swapped, and use the skill. So it takes a little bit more time. Again, if I'm using both hammers, it just goes. If I'm using the other weapon set, it's going to change first and then cast a skill. See? That's how it works. Now, just to wrap up the video, there's one final thing that's very important for you to understand, is that when you reach level 100 in the game, you're going to have a total of 123 points to spend on your passive 3. However, that doesn't mean that you can have 2 totally different passive trees with 123 points allocated for weapon set number 1 and another 123 points allocated in a total different way for weapon set number 2. No, that's not how the system works. The way it works is, again, you have a total of 123 points, and of those 123 points, you have a maximum of 24 points that can be dynamically allocated for weapon set number 1 and weapon set number 2. Again, so those are not extra points. So if you take a look at the corner here, you're going to see that for weapon set number 1, I have 0 out of 24. 24 is the maximum amount of points that I can allocate for weapon set number 1, and 0 means that I've used all of them. And the same goes for weapon set number 2. I used all of my 24 points. But the important part here is that the 24 here are not extra points. So it's not like I have 123 points, which is the maximum amount of points that you get at level 100, and then I have 24 extra points for weapon set number 1 and 24 for weapon set number 2. No, you have the total of 123, and of those 123, 24 can be dynamically allocated for weapon set number 1, and another 24 dynamically allocated for weapon set number 2, in a way that when you change weapons, when you swap weapons, those points dynamically change. And that's it, guys. I hope you liked the video. I know the system can be a little complicated. It took me a little bit to understand, but I hope this video was useful, and I hope it helps you to understand the system and to use the weapon changing, swapping technology, which is pretty good, but it takes a while to get used to it and get the gist of it. And if you like the video, make sure to like the video, leave a comment, questions, and subscribe to the channel. I'm a new creator, and if you like the video, if you subscribe, it helps a lot. So thank you, and I see you guys next video.